jump up there?
Come on up. So we have two people out. Michael Bereslavsky is out, and Tommy Butler. So we've got Alex, Michael Gilmour, Rob Monster, and Dave. I just asked Rob Monster so that Michael Gilmour would have someone to argue with. Well, otherwise I have to do it. So. All right. Should we do quick intros? You've been up.
Yeah,
you have not.
Don't worry about it.
And you've been. All right. First beverages. The beverage service first.
That'd be great.
Okay. So, Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll go. My name is Alex. I started my first internet company almost 20 years ago now.
There was such a thing?
There was such a thing. One of the first web hosting companies, 1997.
Wow.
Around the time of GeoCities and Wild Wild West.
Yeah, it's really on.
These days I run a digital agency where we specialize in helping people develop their domains and then market them.
All right. And what's it called?
SmartSites. That was a great question.
Rob, we know who you are. Rob, Michael Gilmour, we know who you are.
Yeah, what may not be able to know is that I'm actually a developer as well. And
an author?
Yeah, and also too. But I actually wrote some of the code for the original Lord of the Rings computer games, and back in the days of assembler, and now I do PHP cutting of code and that sort of stuff as well. So amongst all the other stuff and business things, I cut code.
Yep. You are a geek.
Yeah, I'm a geek. I'm a geek.
Self-proclaimed. Dave.
All right. Well, I am David, and I've been in the domain industry for about 6 years, really just on the sales side. I worked with Igloo and Domain Advisors, and I recently just took a new position with Has Traffic, Yancey's company or family of companies. So I'll be working on the Namerific side a lot, which is their domain marketplace.
I like how I said David, you said I'm David. I guess that's your grown-up stage name.
Dave was just my Facebook name.
Understood. Okay. Alex, let's start with you. How much should someone invest? If they think about starting a business, you've got the cost of the domain name, which could be substantial. And then, of course, development, marketing. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to start an online business?
Yeah, great question. So it varies a lot, and varies a lot from the kind of business you're developing, and from the small mom and pops who just started a local flower shop and just bought a domain. Obviously, it will be smaller. Then you have much bigger companies that may be late in the game coming into it, or maybe redoing their strategy. So the range is very big, but I think one of the bigger pitfalls, at least I find, is that people invest too little. When starting a business, they invest into everything else, and then the domain, the web development and marketing, they spend very little on, and that kind of hurts them a lot. So.
Is that an offline business? You think they invest too much and then they don't spend enough, they don't allocate enough funds towards
I've seen it on every side. It's kind of business. Pure online businesses also, they spend a lot of time maybe in their operations, in their inventory, maybe their product. And then their website doesn't look great, or they don't do SEO, or they don't do pay-per-click, or they just don't spend time developing it.
Sounds like a domainer.
It's surprisingly from all different industries, all different people. I find that it's very often people just don't spend as much time on it as they should. But we deal with domainers also. People come to us with a very important or expensive domain that they bought, and they want to sell it for more, and part of that is if they rank on Google, at the top of Google for that domain, they obviously make it more valuable. So we have people coming to us that way as well, to develop the domain or market the domain just to sell it. So definitely from both sides.
So it's a good alternative for domain investors who need to turn some inventory. Maybe they're willing to invest a little bit more, develop a property, and then sell that
yeah,
asset.
Exactly. It's even if your domain is already very good, it obviously will make it more valuable if it's ranking on Google, top of the page of Google, has a site built around it. Even if the buyer doesn't really need that site or will make a new site, it still makes it more valuable.
I remember I sold a domain once. I had developed it, but a small website, but it ranked number one for that term. It's a long tail term. And so he bought it from me. I think it was like $5,000 or something. And he said, so that comes to the website. I said, oh no, it doesn't. He bought the domain. He says, well, I want the website too. I said, okay, $5,000. So I got twice as much for it because of the website, which of course meant nothing to me at that point because I didn't have the domain anymore. And the website cost me very little. Rob, now that we're talking about selling a business, you sold businesses. So how do you appraise the value of this business now based on traffic? I mean, what if there's not a lot of revenue?
Yeah.
How do you figure out valuation?
Well, I think the starting point is defining some value proposition that is very compelling. So at a certain stage in the business life cycle, you're selling a vision and a story, and then later on you're selling a multiple of reality. And I think one of the great things about being in this business is that when you have a desirable brand location on the internet and a story that actually has some ability to scale very rapidly, the ability to project what the theoretical value of a business can be is something that is unique about being in the internet business. And when you look at success formulas like, say, Uber, 5 years ago, I think all of us would have been a bit hesitant to get into the car of a random stranger and go for a drive, and now we all do it. And they did $20 billion in revenue in 2016 with no real end in their growth trajectory in sight. So I think to a large extent, there has to be a compelling story at the outset, because when you have a compelling story, you're declaring essentially a vision that people can buy into. But then the second part is, of course, your ability to execute. And if you look at the standard Gartner model of completeness of vision and ability to execute, it's the businesses that are in the upper quadrant, the so-called magic quadrant, that are able to command outsized valuations. Now, why do you care about outsized valuations? Well, if you're going to bring on investors or you're going to hire an executive team, the equity is your currency. So you're going to start with 100%, and then you're going to sell some to an angel investor, and then maybe something in a Series A or whatever your chosen financing instrument is. And of course, you're going to have to align incentives with your executive team and anybody else that you bring in as a partner or sponsor or an acquisition candidate, whatever. So it starts with what's the addressable market, and how complete is your story to be able to capture some significant portion of that addressable market, and maybe a new market that doesn't even exist. And then how credibly can you execute against that opportunity in order to be able to capture the sufficient size of that prize in some meaningfully sustainable way that you provide a path to liquidity for the people who buy into your story.
Michael.
Yeah, a couple of things that we also do angel investing as well, and one of the things we always look at is what's the barriers to scale. When you look at a business, how can you actually accelerate it along? So if you're looking at something with corporate sales or something like that, then long sales cycles and everything, it requires different levels of capital input. The other thing we look at is, can the founder articulate the business plan? And it comes down to, is there a one-page summary? It's called the elevator pitch, that they can just go, this is what it is, this is how you're going to make money, this is why it's compelling to the market, and away you go. And then behind that one page is going to be like a deck of, say, 15 slides, which says, here's the vision, here's the picture where we're going, as Rob was talking about. And then behind all that, there is like appendices, which is like, here's all the details of how we're going to get there. And if someone can't articulate that, then they're not as investable in a business. Because as Rob has said, there's the two parts to it, is the vision, but there's also the execution. So you need to be able to understand what needs to be done to get to the vision. And if you can't articulate it, then how are you actually going to get there? And there's obviously one part of that is going to be either development online, or what are you actually doing? Are you creating like sales channels? There's all sorts of stuff that needs to be solved as part of that process. Yeah.
So you're talking about sort of larger scale businesses. Right?
No. This is
investors
small.
come in. We're talking about raising money,
Okay.
right? This is probably not for a domain investor who wants to develop multiple domains. This is somebody who's going to go all in on one property, right? So what about for the people in this room that have a portfolio, they want to pick several names, want to build them out to increase the value of those names,
Yeah.
right? So how do you phrase that?
Let me make a comment. No matter what you think, how smart you think you are, it is almost impossible to build multiple businesses at the same time properly. I run two companies right now, Epic and Digital Town.
And neither very well. is what you're saying.
Okay. But thankfully, there's a management team behind Epic that is doing a fantastic job on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, so that I'm 80% focused on Digital Town. Right? And I say that very candidly. But having been down that road of actually thinking that you're kind of superhuman or whatever, that you can, parallel process across 5 projects, building 5 different brands, it's freaking impossible. I will tell you this candidly, I've been down that road, and I would advise anybody who's contemplating building 5 contemporary, simultaneous businesses that you're a fool. And you'd be better off building one and having plans for the next 4, and holding your real estate in reserve for the eventuality that you're going to get around to it. But build one, maybe look for synergies. Epic and Digital Town have very good synergies. And Digital Town management team, it's a public company, routinely gets inquiries from the board of Digital Town about might we, acquire Epic and so forth and so on. So it's so obvious that the synergies are there, so there's no downside of having these things fly in formation. But if you're under some impression that it is actually possible to build multiple businesses at the same time, I would like to cure you of this illusion. It's very, very hard.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point is that I always say to people...
You're agreeing with him?
Oh, absolutely.
I thought your job was to argue.
You build one business, make it profitable, and then you build another. There's no such thing as just, hey, develop a domain. There's no such thing as that. Yeah, you're developing a business.
So I want to clarify, it's one at a time.
Yeah, you build one, make it profitable. Yeah. And then, like as Ron was saying, have some synergies. Like ParkLogic, we do lots of different things, okay? But there's clear synergies in what we do. And because you want to be able to leverage the strengths of all different services and stuff. And if you're trying to just say, I'm going to build, I remember talking to this one guy one time, he said, I got 1,000 domains, and I'm going to build out 200 of them. I was scratching my head thinking, that was like 2003 mentality, and you're going to go broke. It's just like...
CMGI.
Yeah.
Remember those guys?
Who?
CMGI. Anybody old enough to remember CMGI?
No, you're dating yourself.
Yeah, no. It was called the Business Development Company. It was a BDC.
Yeah.
It was a .com darling, and of course it imploded into its own weight.
Yeah.
But they raised a bunch of money first.
They raised a bunch of money first. They certainly did. And the thing is that there are guys like Idea Lab, Bill Gross.
Yeah.
You know him, Pasadena. He did lots of projects. But the reality is that it's very, very hard to create an environment where one leader is responsible for many projects. Now contrast that with the most valuable company in the world, and then we do want to hear from David, so I will shut up for a while.
Get ready.
So the most valuable company in the world is
Google.
Apple Computer. $800 billion.
That's true.
About double almost.
But you're including all the money that's overseas.
But they've got $200 billion in cash on the balance sheet. The point is, it was an ecosystem. Steve Jobs, in his cleverness, had an ecosystem vision for all of these inter-cooperating, interoperable components that would ultimately be built over time. He didn't build it all at once, but he had the concept in his mind around a closed ecosystem that would be interoperable and build them as the technology matured. And so I think you can have an ecosystem concept, just like, for example, when Walt Disney bought all of the land around Orlando, they knew that eventually they would do all kinds of development, but they didn't build it all at once. So you can secure the land, do that, and have an architecture in mind around how these things are going to play together so that they can leverage off of each other, and so that you can also do something very clever, is you can partner with advisors, with affiliated companies, and you can say, hey, tell you what, I'll give you this domain, but the condition is you have to do this. Right? I'll sell you this domain for super cheap, but you have to do this. Now you are using your raw land as a currency to influence an outcome that increases your probability of success and getting people to buy into your vision.
You're taking an equity position, essentially.
But it's any form of thing that fits your agenda, right? You're using your domain name as a currency to align people to your vision. That's a good strategy, and it's scalable.
I'll add one more thought on my end of the spectrum as far as selling an online business and the domainers that you always hear about that want to develop all at the same time. So what we do, I don't know if most of you probably heard of Namerific. We essentially sell a brand. It's no development. It's not a built site. It's not obviously a revenue-producing online business, but we found we're selling a dream, which tends to help a lot. Our track record proves that you can buy a domain for very cheap, put some branding on it, and it'll reach the startup crowd more. It'll reach established businesses that are rebranding more. So I mean, that's something that you can do, obviously, several simultaneously.
Red bucket.
It's a Namerific.
So here's the question: is that a sales strategy, or is that actually building a business?
That's more of a...
It's foundational for business, right?
Yeah, you're selling a dream of a new business.
Well, you've probably been in these parts of the country where they have giant real estate developments and they have a beautiful portal, and it looks very inviting. And behind that, there's just open bare land. There's nothing graded. There's no sewage, water, or electric.
But they own it.
But they have a sweet-looking portal, and it's branded and has an identity, some persona. But behind that, nothing's been developed.
It's like staging
I
a
think
house.
it's like that. You could stage the house.
Yeah.
You could stage the model house, actually.
Yeah.
You don't have to build the other houses, but you do have to
Stage one, and then...
Red Bucket is a very nice business.
Yeah.
They do.
So you've brokered a lot of names. Have you had conversations with portfolio owners about particular names and whether or not they should develop them first before they sell them? That sort of conversation?
I have... Really, I mean, working with Igloo and Domain Advisors, our average sale price was around high 220,000. So we were really dealing with end users more than anything. But yeah, I mean, we've had.
But you're dealing with the sellers too.
Yeah. So as far as the big domainers we work with, we're selling a large portfolio. We've definitely had that conversation, especially when they're going through and cherry picking certain names, and that conversation happens, but it's really not. It isn't our focus, obviously, of Igloo.
Right. So if somebody said to you, should I put a website on this and a logo, and will it sell better?
So
what would be your advice?
We really consider ourselves more of a branding and domain brokerage firm, obviously. Our strategy with that conversation was really more of, obviously figuring out what our client's product was or service they were selling, figuring out more of a domain strategy. We obviously have...
Is development ever a strategy?
It sure is. And obviously we've worked with some very large companies that were either new brands or complete rebrands. We brokered Jet.com, which that was a completely fresh start, and Amanda Waltz, she actually had that conversation with them before they even chose a name and found something brandable and helped with the logo work and really walked them through the whole process, and they're doing great now.
Well, sort of.
Great. They're doing well.
Just purchased by Walmart for $3 billion?
Something around there.
Yeah. But Chewy.com sold for more recently. Heard about that sale?
No.
PetSmart bought Chewy.com for $3.35 billion. This is the largest e-commerce sale in history. It's a lot. And most people, I've mentioned that to people, they go, who's Chewy.com?
No idea.
Such a massive set. Does anybody have any questions before you go on? You want to put anybody here on the hot seat? Come on, Michael can take it. Alex, so we talked about creating a budget and allocating for domain development, marketing. What about the time it takes? So how much time should they expect to take?
Great question. That's also another one where people's expectations don't usually meet reality. For us, when we develop even basic, let's say non-e-commerce website, time frame we usually quote is 90 days, 3 months. A lot of times people expect it even faster, and in reality it takes even longer. With e-commerce sites it takes even longer than that. I think realistically it's similar to getting work done in your house or getting a house built. The contractors will always tell you it takes so long and it costs so much, and it always comes out over budget, time, and money-wise.
Yeah, but when you're remodeling your house, they can't just bring in a new bathroom and plug it in. But if you're building an e-commerce site, you put it on Shopify and you use a WordPress template.
For sure.
So you can kind of plug things in, right?
Right. There's ways to do it quicker. If you use Shopify, BigCommerce, some of the platforms are already out there. You don't have to do a lot of the legwork. On the flip side, you have very little customization. So it'd be good for possibly a quick flip or a smaller website. Clients who come to us for bigger projects or websites that they have bigger dreams for, they don't usually build it on a pre-made template. We have a client who sells gold, platinum, silver. They sell bullion. All the prices for every single product changes every second based on live market prices. So that's stuff like that you would never be able to do with a pre-made Shopify or whatever it is.
So there's an API that comes.
There's a lot of time, yeah. So if you go with Shopify or one of those pre-made systems, there's definitely benefits to it. There's templates already out there. There's functionality already there. You don't have to create user login portals or anything like that. But you lose a lot of the customability if you want to have something unique on your website or something different from what the system offers. It's very hard to do so. So there's definitely both sides with Shopify or any of the other pre-made kind of ecosystems. Definitely a lot quicker. You could turn the store around in a couple days if you really wanted to. It won't look amazing, it won't look different or unique per se, but definitely for that it would be a lot quicker.
But maybe that's good enough. So if it's a domain owner and they just want to have something, right? They want to develop a site. Maybe it's just kind of a MVP, a minimum viable product. Get a site up there so that it now takes on a life of its own. And they're not really setting it up for future success and running a business. They're setting it up. It's like adding a logo, right? That's not necessarily the logo. It's just this is what it could look like. So what about that?
Yeah, we have a sort of saying internally, archaeologically, go build the rusty mini bike before the Harley Davidson. In other words, just get the thing going and listen to customer feedback, because you could end up building this incredibly unbelievable website, putting a lot of money into it, and find out the customers don't even want it. So, build the rusty mini bike. So, the thing I always look at, particularly if I'm going to invest in something, is how does the business get to the first dollar of revenue, and how do they get there fast? And how do they get the customers and get that feedback and to listen to the customers? And then you can go along, you've now got money, you've actually just got a scaling issue then, that you can then go and pour money in and build the Harley Davidson, because you've now got some data points. And it doesn't work all the time, but I find it works for a lot of businesses.
Well, the startup community is called MVP, right?
Yeah.
Minimum viable product. The idea is you've kind of sketched everything out. You know what your dream site is and what the business is going to be, except you don't know if that's going to work. So build out the minimum viable product, put it out there.
Yeah.
People know that it's in beta, right? It's not fully polished yet. But then you'll get customer feedback, and then you'll learn what direction you should be taking that business, as opposed to just doing it first and then getting feedback and kind of undoing what you've done. Right? So that's the MVP. That's your rusty mini bike.
Yeah, the rusty mini bike. Yeah. And the thing I'm interested in is how many people here are actually developers? How many techies do we have here? So you can actually cut some code and all that sort of stuff?
Really only one hand went up high. Everybody else
everyone else.
The coffee break is coming up.
Is that right?
It's coming.
Yeah. That's cool.
Okay, but back to my question about the kind of the mini site, or just something quick and dirty. Is that a good option for a portfolio owner that can put up several of these and not really run with it as a business, but just kind of set it up for someone else to run with it? Does that make sense? Anybody?
I think there's a compelling case for turnkey move-in ready businesses In fact, I'm such a strong proponent of it that that's exactly what Digital Town is doing. So we go and take delivery on agreements with top-level domains. And when you buy a .menu, for example, this is launching actually next week at the National Restaurant Association, starting Friday night and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. People who register a .menu will be able to have a turnkey move-in-ready cloud restaurant platform in a box where you can do online ordering and take out delivery, book a table, and have a digital smart menu that lets you browse menu options in a multimedia format. And of course, the whole premise there is that restaurants that are not technical, a lot of the smaller restaurants, they're not technical at all. And you give them the ability to do that. So I think actually the direction that the thing should go, and I think people who are registrars also can be thinking in these terms, but certainly all the registry operators should be thinking in these terms, which is how do I pair this top-level domain extension with some turnkey move-in-ready value proposition? And that's a win-win. That's a win-win for the registrant. But it's also a value proposition for the speculator. So if the domain speculator, that's you guys, is going to take a position of, let's say, a .wedding or a .fashion, and they know that that registry is about to bundle some type of content management system with the domain name. So when you buy the domain name, you get the content management system hosted in the cloud for free, monetized through transactions up to some base level of transaction volume. Now you're creating a tremendous value proposition, which is instead of selling somebody raw land, you're selling them a turnkey move-in-ready business or content management system or whatever it is. So whether that's a .blog, which could be paired with WordPress, free WordPress hosting, or whether that's a .shop that is paired with a free storefront, now there's a very compelling reason why somebody would buy that extension. And I think that's coming. And I see that with a bit of foreknowledge.
It's a subtle hint. It's coming. That's what he's saying. It's definitely coming. You sound like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was. More of a question. And I asked sort of David this a bit. Is that for the domain investor? Is that building a business and developing a business? Or is that developing a better way to get sales opportunities? Because I understand the platform for the menu system, right, and all that sort of stuff for the restaurants, that's a business, right? Okay. What I don't know is for the domain investor whether that's actually just a better sales channel is going to attract more potential leads to sell the whole thing.
Well, isn't it going back to developing the theoretical value, right? So it's like going beyond just developing a logo, as Namerific does, right? So they've just bundled the logo with it, but bundling a website with the domain is now you can take this and run with it and build a business on it.
Obviously, it depends on the domain. A lot of ours are like 4 to 5 letter pronounceable, just brandable names.
Right. So you can only do.
You wouldn't develop something like that.
Right.
But if it was something more generic,
yeah,
you could, or something obvious,
yes,
right? Womenskirts.com.
Yes, the model I referenced really works in the context of the new domain extensions. It doesn't lend itself to the 5-letter brandable.com excluded.
Yeah.
Clear.
I mean, we do work with, these aren't like auto-generated logos either, that we work with actual designers. So if it's a name that sounds like, with any similarity to it, like an English word, we'll base the logo around that. But they're still brandable names.
Right. So it's a little bit different than it's going beyond just the logo. Because if it's just pronounceable, then that's it. That's all you can do. Unlike some of these other things we're talking about. So, but the question really remains: should investors do this? Should they put websites on these domains for additional theoretical value? Does that make sense? And if it does, how do they choose a name, and how much should they spend?
So on that one, has anybody ever sold anything on Flippa? A few? Not that many? Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So, yeah, okay. So for a while, Flippa was a thing, and I think it peaked. But the idea that there was a marketplace where you could sell, turnkey move-in-ready websites, I don't think that we've seen the last word in that. I think that there's going to be another run at that. I'm not sure exactly which company is going to do it.
Flip peaked in domains, but did they peak in websites as well?
We're still doing websites, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not really the
Volume cut down.
it's not really the exponential growth engine that it could have been. And I have a theory on why that is.
Share it with us.
It's a lot of crap.
Because of all the crap.
So the Rob Monster theory on this is that people who are long on time are sometimes short on money, and people who are long on money are often short on time. So if you are going to go and buy 100 turnkey move-and-ready websites that are operated by other people, what you end up with is 100 yard sales where you have hosting over here, domain over there, analytics over there, and transactions over there, and it doesn't scale.
Yeah.
So now in the age of the cloud, where more and more things are running on AWS or running on Azure, maybe built on platforms like the top-level domain extension platforms referenced earlier. Now all of a sudden, you have a potential scenario where people can actually build a business and sell a business, and the ability to take over somebody's business is a lot less painful than it would have been in the eventuality that people had, cPanel hosting over there and everything spread around with, non-standard technology solutions. So that's where I think we're going to see some innovation in the marketplace for developed sites.
Yeah, and I think Flip is actually a great example because it literally answers a question. A lot of the sites on there, of course, there are bigger value sales, but a lot of the sites on there were smaller sites that someone would develop very quickly to increase the value. So you would have a section of people just selling their domain, and then people would sell websites where they would include 3 months of website traffic data, 3 months of revenue from the site, and that's it. And that right away would increase the value of the domain.
And if you wanted...
You're maxed up.
Right. Then they start pumping the numbers up, and then it all falls away when you buy it.
Yes, it's part of the reason it started declining because I think there were a lot of transactions with people expecting more than they got.
That's why I keep on coming back to, is this about building businesses or building sales channels? Because if it's about building sales channels, then all power to it. Put a whole lot of stuff in Digital Town, all that sort of stuff, and just go for it. Because you may as well. There's no downside, and you're not managing anything. There's no management issue.
Completely different. I think it's completely different.
Yeah.
And it should be handled completely different.
That's right. But if this panel's on building businesses, then build one.
Yes.
And it's a tough job.
Well, I think the issue is that panels will develop a domain and sell a business.
Yeah.
But we all have more than one domain.
That's the problem. See, to me, the ultimate problem is this, is having a management platform which allows you to actually scale your management expertise and have an impact across, say, 1,000 domains, so that you can identify which domain needs to have your management focus, and you can actually make an impact on that particular domain. And no one's cracked that. That's a really tough problem.
Okay, so give us the answer, right?
If you've got 1,000, let me tell you, you've got 1,000 domains, then what are you going to do? Spend 5 minutes a month on each one of them? Like, it is really tough. It's a tough problem, and I don't know anyone who's going to solve that problem. You've had a crack at it a few times.
So the what does scale is, you have a giant fishing net. You've got however number of thousands of domains in your portfolio. Every one of them is a fishing net out on the literal web.
Yeah.
And from time to time, people will show up and ask, how much do you want for it?
Yes. Especially
if you invite make offer. I generally advise make offer. I know people are all about buy it now. Sado, I think you're in the room. I'm not a fan of buy it now. Mm-hmm. So, if you get an unsolicited offer and you can vet the offer, you're also having an opportunity to vet the offeree. And so if you find out that the guy is low on talent and short on cash, you can lease the domain to them. I'm a big fan of that. You can do financing. I'm a fan of that. But you also can entertain the merit of their idea. Now, the other thing that is, I think, fascinating about the ability to take offers is also the ability to be prompted that there's somebody out there that's incubating an idea that maps to your domain. So they're going to bring you their idea, and let's suppose it's an idea that you hadn't considered before, and now you can go out and say, okay, in the universe of companies that could execute this idea, who's out there? And now you have a stalking horse. You say to the other companies, look, I've been approached about this domain name, and I'm considering selling it, and now you have an ability to arbitrage between multiple good options. And one of those good options can be to co-develop with the party that is approaching you about doing a development with you for that domain, because they can't afford to give you a $100,000 domain, $100,000 cash for your $1,000 domain. So now you have the ability to maybe get $100,000 in equity value for your domain that's maybe only worth $1,000 of cash. Right? So that's really, I think, a very effective way to use a large portfolio to be able to create value without necessarily overextending your personal resource. And that's not just money, that's time.
So
I would
here's a
suggest,
question for you, Rob.
I would suggest if you ever do a deal like that where you're going to provide your domain name for a startup for equity, add a clause that says if the startup becomes insolvent, the domain is returned back to you.
Right.
And most people don't do that, but it's an easy thing to negotiate. They'll always do that, and most of the time they'll get your name back.
So here's a question for you, Rob. How do you manage all of the investments? Like if you've got 1,000 domains and you say, let's imagine all your dreams came true and you've now got 200 equity investments across like jurisdictions all around the world.
Yeah.
Is that now your business?
Well, I think I have holdings in about 25 companies. So it's not an unfamiliar topic for me.
Because it takes a slice of your
And I'm
time.
talking about private equity businesses, businesses that are not completely autopilot. So it absolutely can be done.
Yeah.
But to a large extent, what you're doing is it's like planting a forest. You may wait 40 years to harvest a tree, but in all likelihood, if the environment, the tree grows. So you can choose to play an active role, whether with time or money. And I'm very selective about that. Or you can play a passive role and set it and forget it. And there's place for that. I'm on the board of maybe 7 companies, and that's enough. For the other ones,
Completely agree.
They are set it and forget it, and whatever happens, happens. And if I can be helpful, or I can align incentives or make the ecosystems work better in compatibility with each other, then I'm going to seek that out every time. And that's one of the great value adds that you bring, is because you see things. A lot of us are reading, tech briefings and so forth, and you can spot something and say, wow, that's an interesting trend, or that's an interesting person that this person should meet. And now all of a sudden you're adding tremendous value just by connecting stakeholders in a network. So it can be done, and I think if you have a meaningful domain portfolio and you have the appetite, to be the connector, you've got a tremendous opportunity to create value. But it will take time. Don't expect quick wins. You may get some, but to a large extent, now you're a facilitator, a catalyst, and a market maker, looking for ways to add value, and you'll see what comes through.
I completely agree with you on just looking for trends. Like every day, I read tech news. I have a whole digest of stuff. Because you don't know what you may read, which will trigger something. You think, this domain, this person put together, and you've now got something. And it's imperative to be feeding that into yourself as a person in this industry all the time, I find.
As well as, and if you're investing in other businesses, then you could not just make connections, but send it. I'm one of those annoying people that sees an article or a new product, and I'll send it off to the founder of a company that I'm investing in. What do you think of this? I do that often. But I liken this model to, the more lines you have in the water, the more opportunity to catch fish, which is a great analogy for a vegan. But that's beside the point. In the startup world, you invest in 10 companies, half of them are going to just fail outright, and you'll lose all your money. And a few of them will do okay, and maybe you'll get your money back. But then 1 or 2 will do fantastic. And that's how and really in domaining it's the same thing. I mean, I've purchased, let's say, 3letter.coms and a couple I did okay, and some I still have, and then one I sold for hundreds of thousands. And so so it kind of makes up for all the others. And I kind of look at domaining where there's tranches of names that I bought, and most of them are just okay, or I still have them. But then there's that one that did great.
Yep.
And I think we all do that, right? We're sitting our names, and we turn 2 or 3% a year, and we just don't know which 2 or 3% are going to sell. But we're thrilled when we do finally sell one, right? So going back to the development topic, which is why we're on stage. I think we started talking about niches, right? The trends. So how do we look at our portfolio and identify the trends so that we can choose which names to develop? Because you have 1,000 names, you're not going to develop them all. You need to choose 1 or 2 to put in that development pipeline. So how do we go about doing that?
Well, there's some leading indicators. One of the things that I look at, and if you have your domains at Epic Registrar, this is available to you, which is the number
Shameless plug.
Yeah, it is. But you're a board member, so you wouldn't mind. You can look at whiz lookups. So we actually let you track the number of unique whiz lookups and the number of people that are repeat visitors to your news record. It shows you in red if it's the same person from the same IP looking at it multiple times, orange if it's one person looking at it multiple times, and then green if it's random people. And a lot of times that will give you insight as to which names may be trending in some area where you've got something going. It's like fishing, but you've got a bite, right? And they didn't take the hook and run with it, but you've got a nibble.
I didn't know.
It's a nice feature.
There's so many features.
I've seen that feature.
So if you're dealing with thousands and thousands of names, and not really knowing which ones are heading in the right direction, and you don't like studying the news to look at news trends, then that's one easy way to be able to look through a filter.
I'm going to do that.
To spot high potentials.
Actually, pretty often we have people call in who want to start a business. So they just sold a business, they will start a new one. And the question is, what should I start the business in? Literally the question that we're talking about. And I found it really useful to go through Google Trends and some of the tools Google gives. Google Trends would give you literally what's being searched now, and you could see volume over time from different countries. Say you want to start something in Europe, you could see the volume for that keyword in Europe, some specific country compared to 5 years ago. And then more so, Google has a lot of tools on the pay-per-click side, not meant to really help you pick domains, but could be used that way, because you could put in keywords in there. You could see not only the search volume for it, but how expensive that keyword is. They actually show you how competitive it is as well. So you could literally find certain niches that a lot of people are searching for. People are paying a lot of money on paid search for, but maybe the domains aren't taken, or you could come up with a good domain or a good business. So we usually start on with some of those Google tools to help identify.
What about Amazon trends?
It's also,
if you want to do an e-commerce play.
Exactly, especially if you're going to do e-commerce play, pick away Amazon. I've seen cases where it doesn't align with Google. There's certain products that people will search on Amazon but won't search generally on Google. So it might be in some cases specific to Amazon, but definitely if you're going to be selling that product on Amazon, that's definitely great tool.
It might be good to take a look at Google Trends and Amazon Trends and then compare that to your portfolio. Because there could be something trending and you have a name, so that's the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
Right? And if nothing else, you could do just an Amazon affiliate play, which is easy, which might increase the perceived value or the
theoretical money along the way.
Yeah.
I find if you're building a domain, so building a business, then choose something you're passionate about. Like, if you're not interested in knitting, then don't do a knitting website. You'll be bored out of your brains, and you're supposed to be sort of pouring yourself into this thing.
I'm bored just hearing you say that.
Yes, exactly. Like, find something you think, oh, I wish this could happen, and then develop the business case around it, and the business plan, that sort of stuff. And it may sound a little bit old-fashioned and all that sort of thing, but look, life's too short to be bored. Go do something really interesting. Do something you think, oh, that'd be really cool. For many years, I ran an aviation website because I'm a private pilot. And I had a
ball doing it, and made a whole lot of money and all that sort of stuff, and it was great. Yeah, and anything I like to put my hand to, I like to have some fun with it. Yeah, whatever it is, because you've got to smile on the journey. Yeah.
It's funny. We've had this conversation many times. So I own ScienceFiction.com, which is a fully developed site. There's a bunch of writers and editor, and I don't give two bits about science fiction. It's just not a passion of mine, and it is a passion of his.
You keep on trying
So
to get me.
he always asks me about it and wants to talk about articles that have been. I don't care. Any questions from the audience? We're coming to a close. And are you guys even awake back there? It's so quiet. No, I think the answer is no.
I think they're all looking at the computers because they got viruses from this attack.
No, that's right. So no questions? You guys are just ready for the break? No, I'm sorry, we're not taking questions anymore. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. You said you're not a fan of buy it now, but rather make an offer. Perhaps you'd like to elaborate a little bit about the reason why.
So the question
Yeah.
was, Rob doesn't like buy it now, so priced domains. He prefers to make offers, so he wants to negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, the reason is, of course, the opportunity to have interaction with the offeree, and, to the extent that you have time to manage those offers, you also have the opportunity to develop a rapport, have a relationship with the person who is, interested in buying it. A lot of times, people are not so clever and clandestine that they're hiding their identity. You can look them up and you can see what they're about. You can very quickly figure out what their financial resources might be. But you also might be able to gauge from that conversation the idea that they're working on, and that might inform a lot of other things that may lead to structured deals that ultimately give you more value. Companies like Seelos and GoDaddy, they do prefer that you price their domains because it's efficient. They can push through volume, and those organizations they don't really like consultative selling. They want to know what the price is, and they want to be able to push it through. But I think if you have the bandwidth to process inquiries, and you can set minimum offers, so you basically filter out the low balls. So you can have your cake and kind of eat it too by essentially inviting engagement. And of course, when you invite engagement, you now have a database of all the people that ever offered to buy your domain, so that when you do get a viable offer, you now have a stalking horse. And you have a bunch of other people, and you can send it to auction.
Yeah.
This is here's my shameless plug for Undeveloped. There's now a tool called send-to.auction. So you can take a domain name where you have an offer, and you can send that domain name to a live auction, and invite all the other people that ever were expressing interest in that domain name to go to the same auction, plus anybody else that you can find or that we can find for you. Right? So that's why I would, advocate make offer.
Just
I can't agree with you on that.
to add to that very quick, on top of that, obviously, huge benefits of building the relationship, and you get additional information about the buyer that you wouldn't have otherwise. eBay instituted a make an offer. They actually reported transaction go up. So aside from all the other benefits, it literally, eBay has shown that it improves transactions. So it's transactional volume.
Yeah, I also don't like buy it now. It's all make an offer, and I like to figure out who the buyer is. Frankly, our job is to sell our names for as much as we possibly can. And I've gotten inquiries from Microsoft and Bill Gross at Idea Lab and celebrities and other large companies, and sometimes I've never heard of the company, right? And I look it up, and they do hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Like, I don't have to sell it cheap, right? Because they can afford it. For me, it's a strategy to do a little research on who it is, and then I can gauge my pricing. And sometimes I look it up, and this is a person, it's a kid in school, and I know they don't have any money, and so I don't give as much time as I might otherwise.
I just had a domain just recently. It was like a $50 offer. Through the dialogue, and up selling for $15,000. And really, it was
Canadian?
No, real money. But this was
I think Ilza's not here to do it.
Australian.
Australia, that's not real money.
No, but it was through the dialogue. It was through the process.
like it was not a huge one, a huge sale, but it was a good sale. Yeah.
Well, it also gives you the opportunity to explain the value, and you know, you convince them to pay more than they might if you had it priced at say 15,000. They may have just gone away. If you had the opportunity to explain why it's worth 15,000. So there's plenty of names that I have sold at that higher value simply because I was able to explain it to them and give them some data.
It's exactly what we did.
Yeah, I mean, look at Freedom.com, $2 million.
$2 million.
How much do you want to bet that was a highly consultative sale?
For sure.
Alexander sold it for $2 million. Did I say billion?
Yeah, it was 2 million. It was 2 million.
Yeah.
Who actually bought it?
I've got billion on the brain.
I'm not sure.
Million.
I'm not sure who bought it.
Was that Freedom Furniture or something?
Freedom.com, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But the seller
But it was
has
a consultative sale.
Yeah.
You could bet on it.
Yeah.
the seller of Freedom.com now has a bit of freedom.
Yes.
Because they received $2 million in real dollars, real money. All right, so I think that's about it as far as time, and we're going to break now, I believe. Yeah, going to break. Okay, so I want to thank our panelists. Appreciate the conversation. Thanks, guys. Coffee for the Oh, the auction. And what do you want me to say about the auction? Give us names. If anybody has a domain that they were thinking about developing into a business, but instead you're going to give it to charity, you can do that now. Just fill out a card and you can give it to me or Dietmar or Jothan or Reza, who's inputting the whole time.
That was good.
So thank you for that. Where are you based? Great.
All right, so this is Jothan, and I was one of the moderators and MCs here at Domaining Europe, and I have to say, Alex represented. That was an amazing panel. Thank you very much for coming, and we really appreciate you being a participant.
That's good.